Welcome to the Clear Brand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander Toth. Today we're talking about A/B testing for marketing. This is a topic that we have a lot of conversations with our clients about because we value it highly. I think everyone should be A/B testing their marketing assets all the time to learn, improve, and get more conversions. This is one of the best ways to consistently increase your conversions, which means you're increasing your leads and sales. And today I'm going to go through what it is and how to do it in a practical way that you'll be able to follow along with if you're interested. So before we jump into what it is, let's talk about why it matters. As I've worked with many clients over the years, I've noticed a common thread. We start off in the messaging portion of the project. If we don't, it's kind of like we view marketing like building a bridge between you and your customers. You wouldn't just go pick up a hammer and start hammering away without a plan. And so we want to start off by creating a blueprint. We're going to plan out the bridge between you and your customers. And part of that is the message we're going to be using. Part of that is the design. One of the objectives of marketing is to build and reinforce memories. And you do that by being consistent. So if you don't know what it is that you're talking about in your marketing, you're not going to be consistent. So you're not going to end up building and reinforcing memories. Same thing with design. If you have not settled on certain design elements and colors and fonts and things like that, each time somebody sees an ad or a post from you, if the design is different, you're not building and reinforcing memories. So as we're in the starting phase of a project, we're creating the blueprint with a client. I see the same thread, the same thing happen over and over, and that is we want to be certain. Our clients want to be certain. The team wants to be certain. And it's basically impossible on the front end. In fact, what I've seen is the folks who are outrageously confident in the marketing message still get things wrong. And that's the fear, I think, that all of us have kind of behind the scenes a little bit. What if I'm getting this wrong? What if it's the wrong color? What if it's the wrong font? What if it's the wrong message? What if we're telling a story in the wrong way, or just one piece of it is wrong? How much money are we going to be losing? That's a big, important question. And so what we do is we want to first acknowledge, listen, if we're sitting in a room together having a conversation, these are opinions. We're not going to confuse that with data. Opinions are good, and we can add them to our data set, but they are not the complete picture. If we're after leads and sales, we've got to be tracking and making sure that the things that we're doing, the decisions that we're making are getting to leads and sales. And our opinions are a good starting place, but we've got to validate them. We've got to validate our opinions with data, with customer behavior, right? Are these designs, is this message actually getting the results we want? Because at the end of the day, we pay our bills with revenue. And if I have an opinion that turns out is not validated by our customer behavior, I need to know. I need to find out that what it is that moves our customers forward in their journey. And if I'm wrong, that's fine. I got to know. Because we as a company need to be right. The individual, no individual needs to be right. In fact, if you're watching this thinking you need to be right, let's pump the brakes here for a second, because it's not true. if you're more committed to your own opinions and the delusion that you're right than you are to data, customer behavior, leads, and sales, that means that you are paying a high price, literally getting lower revenue so that you can walk around believing you're right. Now, we don't want to do that. And this is where A/B testing comes in. I'm assuming that we're getting something at least a little bit wrong. And I'm going to tell some stories here of getting a variety of results and seeing which one wins through A/B testing and being able to put a dollar amount on that. So that's the big question when it comes to A/B testing is, what is your opinion that you're right worth to you? Is it worth $1 million? Is it worth $10,000? Because A/B testing, what we're doing is we're going to put that to the test and we're going to increase revenue. But it means that you might be wrong. So just know that going into this. So what is A/B testing? A/B testing is where we're going to take two variants, sometimes more, but variants of something, an asset, a design, a color, a word, a message, all sorts of things. We're going to take two variants and we're going to put them up against each other in a way that we can measure specific outcomes. And what we want to do is see which variant gets us to the outcome that we want. So to get a little bit more specific here, one thing we might be able to test is a button color. Does green or orange get, so there's the variant, which one gets clicked more? That would be the outcome. That's a example. That's not the only thing to do it, but that's a good example. Which button color is going to get clicked more? So then what we would do is we'd put these out. We want them to get seen fairly equally so we have accurate data. We're going to be tracking the outcomes, and the outcomes are going to tell us which one wins, which one is validated, which one is going to get us the results we want. So as we're building an A/B test, we have to make sure that we are testing things that we can control. Okay. Now, if we go back to science class, let's say biology, high school biology, a lot of folks back in science class learned first you create a hypothesis and then you're going to test. I disagree. Because a hypothesis is a bias. So if you say, okay, we're going to put orange and green against each other, and my hypothesis is that the orange is going to win. Why does that matter? What you think is going to win? We don't need to have a hypothesis here, right? So as we're building the A/B test, we do need to make sure that we are controlling things similar to what you learned in science class, but we don't need a hypothesis. That's the whole point of what we're doing here is we're learning what will win. So we need a question instead. A question of which color will get more clicks, right? There's the A/B test. Now we want to make sure that we're testing things we can control. So for example, we can make sure that the button is a precise color. That's great. The outcome is something that we can clearly measure so that we will know which one wins. So we're not going to say in an A/B test, our question is, are people going to like orange or green more? That's a bad test because you can't measure that. How are you going to measure what they like? So we want to be measuring something. We want to be tracking something that's clearly measurable. So clicks, conversions. You could do something like scroll the amount of that down the page that people scroll. That's a possibility. I don't like that possibility though, because that's not an outcome that I'm interested in. I don't care how far down our webpage somebody scrolls. That doesn't matter to me. If we ran an experiment, we might discover that the people who click to buy or who click to schedule a call scroll less. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it's a possibility. And if it's possible that the people who click or buy or schedule a call scroll less, then why do I care how far they scroll? I don't. So, how do we know who wins? Well, it's not we see one of the outcomes we're after. We need to see a lot. And this is one of the biggest problems with A/B testing, is measuring, having the patience to get to a number of results that actually has statistical significance. So, basic rule of thumb that we use at ClearBrand is we're shooting for about 100 conversions or 100 of that particular result that we're after. So I'm not as interested in how many people have seen the test, 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000. I don't care, because that's not our outcome that we're measuring. We're measuring some kind of behavior. So I want to see about 100 or more conversions, and I want to see statistical significance. So this is where I'm going to talk about some tools at the end of this. And these tools make this really easy. So you don't have to do math. You don't have to worry about it. The tools will tell you if it's statistically significant or not. But if you end up with 100 conversions and 49 of them were on variant A and 51 of them were on variant B did not win. You just don't have a winner. It's equal. So you can either let it keep going, or you can test something different and choose and use your opinions. That's a good place for opinions, to choose which one you like more. So we want to see some kind of, 25 versus 75. That has statistical significance. And the tools that I am going to mention here in a minute will reveal that to you. They will tell you the statistical significance and which one won and how much it actually won by in percentages, rather than just in this is how many people clicked, make up your own mind. No. This will tell you for you. This will tell you the winner, so you don't have to worry about it. So we'll get to the tools here in a second. But that's the basics of the A/B test. We're going to choose what it is that we're measuring, so that's the variant. We're going to choose what outcome we're tracking, that's the behavior. And then we're going to be waiting long enough to have some really good results. All right. Let's talk about these variants. Let's get into the how. As we're constructing variants, there's two main ways that you can go about doing this. Number one is to test many things. And number two is to test one thing. Now, a data scientist is going to tell you never test many things. And while I understand, I'm going to get into when you can test many things and the difference between the two here. So let's start off with testing many things. So the data scientists are already shaking their head at me. That's okay. Bear with me for a second. The reason why data scientists aren't going to like the idea of testing many things is because you don't know what caused the winner to win. So if you test, let's say we have two totally separate ads. We're going to use different photos. We're going to use different words. We're going to use different colors. We're going to use different call to action text and different button colors. Maybe even different sizes of the graphics. Let's say variant A wins. Now the question is, why did variant A win? Was it the text? Was it the button color? Was it the call to action text? Was it the photo? We don't know. So that's the problem with testing many things. But at ClearBrand, we do this on a regular basis, and I'll tell you why and when you can do it. We test many things when we launch a new site. So before we launch a site, we make sure that our clients are gathering data on their current site. We launch a website in 50 days or less. So ideally, the clients have some amount of data, at least the number of leads coming through the site, before we even start working together. They can count that up. If they have zero tracking, zero measuring anything, we're going to add it on day one so that we have at least about 50 days of information to compare after we've launched. Then as we go through the process, we're changing everything. We're changing the content. We're changing the call to action text. We're changing the button colors. And so when we launch the new website, technically, this is an A/B test to a certain extent. We're going to be comparing the conversions and the data coming in after the launch to the conversions and the data before the launch. So you could call this an A/B test. Now, this is okay because we want speed. We could go through our client sites and change one thing at a time and wait for the conversions to come in and make some decisions and then go change the next thing. This would take years to get to the place that we launch the website at. If we're just going to change the call to action text, and for a lot of folks, if you don't have maybe 10,000 or more people on your website every month, you're going to have to wait a month or 2 or 3 to really get solid information on these A/B tests. So if you've got to wait a month or 2 to figure out which call to action text is going to work better, and then you've got to wait another month or 2 to figure out which call to action button color is going to work better. We're already 4 months in and we've changed 2 very simple things. So this is why sometimes it's okay to change many things. You are in the business of making money. That's how you pay your bills. That's how you pay your employees. That's how you stay in business. Data scientists are in the business of gathering data and learning things. They make money if they gather data and they learn things, right? So they have reason and motivation to know exactly what worked, why, what is the cause-effect relationship. You, however, just need more money. And so this is why we have decided we're going to launch something that's freaking incredible. We're going to compare the data to what happened before, but it's always better. 100% of the time when we launch a new website, it's better. We almost always see double the conversions after we launch. Now we have a new baseline. And from this baseline, now we're going to test one thing at a time. Because at that point, we want to know what works and why and what is the cause and effect relationship. After we've made this big leap forward. And that leap forward is based on all of the information and data and expertise and best practices that we've collected over the past years of gathering this stuff. And we're going to apply that to this new website. Then we're going to transition to learning one thing at a time. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you turn on notifications. Turn on that little bell. Will notify you the next time that we have a podcast. This also makes it easier for other folks to find this content. So if you found it helpful, like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. So let's talk about that. When we're learning and testing one thing at a time, what does that look like? Well, typically, there's a number of things that right from the start we know we're curious about. One of those things is button color. I keep talking about this because I'm fascinated, but at this point, we have disproven all color psychology on websites. I have done a lot of reading about what colors are supposed to get results. Some people think it's high contrast. So that would be if your background is a cool color, so blue, green, purple, something like this, then your button would be a warm color. So orange, red, yellow. Those are warm colors. We've disproven that theory. Another theory is some people think you should use red. Some people think you should not use red. Right? There's so much disagreement on colors anyway that they kind of all they don't disprove each other, but we've basically disproven all of them. We have seen sites where red works. We have seen other sites where red doesn't. We have seen sites where high contrast works. We have seen sites where low contrast works. So at this point, what we have been able to conclude up to this point is we've just got to test. This is not something that we can use past data to decide because the past data conflicts. So one of the first tests that we typically do is button color. We typically have 2 or 3 button colors, and we're going to set up the website so that if there's 2 button colors, 50% of the viewers will see one color and 50% will see the other color. If there's 3, it's 33, 33, 33%. So we let that run. I want to gather that data until we see a clear winner. And this is one of those things where my only advice, if you're choosing button colors on your site, is A/B test it. Because there is no industry standard. There is no clear color psychology or color theory when it comes to websites. Like I said, we've disproven all of it. So test it. So this is why this is one of the first things that we test, is we now understand our own ignorance of the colors. So we test it. Let's just jump straight to validating with customer behavior and data. Now, what does that mean in the design process? That means we know our opinions don't really hold a lot of weight. We're basically choosing in the design process a color scheme. We're not going to spend a lot of time arguing over which color the buttons should be because we're going to test it. Same thing as we're working with clients. Sometimes clients have a strong preference of one color versus another. Hey, I hear you. I understand that you have a strong preference, but if color A sells 50% more than color B, I know that you like color B more, but wouldn't we want color A on the site? Well, yeah, of course. 50% more sales? Totally. Right? So our opinions in that front part of the conversation suddenly matter less. Now, the benefit here is, when I at the beginning of this episode, I said that a lot of folks are uncertain. They're nervous that they're going to get it wrong. We no longer need to be nervous because we're going to test. So I don't have to lose sleep over the question of, did I choose the wrong button color? We're going to go test the button color and figure out which one gets the customer behavior that we're after. So what kinds of things can you test? You can test, like I said, button color. You can test button text. The other big thing that we test, though, is the message itself. And this is another area in that initial blueprint phase. We're going to make a list of things that we're uncertain about. So we've got a client right now who's basically launching a new industry. I can't say much more than that here, but it basically doesn't exist. So there's a lot of questions there. What is motivating his customers to buy? We're not sure yet because it hasn't existed before. Okay? What is the problem that they think is being solved with this solution? Well, we're not sure yet because it hasn't existed before. So in this case, we are building in A/B testing into the whole plan because we need to validate all of this with customer data. So we're going to be A/B testing the top section of the website because that is where we connect with the motivation of the customer. Now, when it comes to testing writing, we're not going to test one word at a time. We're going to test an idea, right? So a motivation. So for running shoes, for example, if you make running shoes and they're light, they're for racers. Okay, what is the motivation? Is the motivation to save money? Is the motivation to win races? Is the motivation to run faster? Is it to feel light on your feet? You see how the one solution, running shoes that are light and fast, they could have a number of motivations. Do we want to target one specific motivation, or do we want to have a breadth of motivations? So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to take one idea and we're going to test that idea against another idea. So for these running shoes, the top section of the site might say, run faster and win more races. If there's other writing there, we would want it to line up with this idea of winning more races. Now, what if it's the lightest shoes? The light piece of the message is what's going to connect with folks. So we might take that idea and test it up against something like the lightest running shoes on the planet. And then any other text in that top section would match the lightest running shoes on the planet idea. Now, you could also take this and apply it to the entire site. And all of the places on the homepage that talk about the motivation of the customer, we could align with either winning more races or having the lightest shoes you've ever worn. And so we could actually do an entire page test. Now, I would not recommend testing much more than that. Because if you start changing other sections, for example, another section on the site is going to be the problem. If we start testing other sections, we lose the confidence that it was the motivation that changed the buyer behavior. So another test after you figure out which of these wins might be to test the problem section. And anytime a problem is mentioned on the site, we might have a different problem idea that we're testing, right? But again, we want to have two basic ideas, maybe a third. The problem with the third is you have to have a lot of website traffic because now you're splitting your traffic into even smaller buckets. So typically we want to just have those two. But you could test this problem idea versus this other problem idea and then see which of those wins. So I would consider testing the motivation idea, an idea in general. I would consider an idea to be one test. Now, after you get into, is it winning more races or is it having the lightest shoe on earth, you can get even more specific. You could, if you want, test just one word. Change the lightest shoes on earth to the brightest shoes on earth. I don't know. I'm making this up. But you can do that as well. That's another option. So the basic idea here, though, is for the most part, we want to test one thing against, so one thing on the site, right? So the button color is one thing. Now let's go down this rabbit hole for a second about how do we tell if it's one thing or if it's multiple things? Because changing the motivation, it's going to change a lot of text on the site. How do we know that that's one thing versus, let's say, the button color? Really, it comes down to your confidence in identifying what changed the customer behavior. So, for example, if we changed the button color and the button text, and let's say variant A wins by a large percentage, now you're left with a question. Was it the color or the text? Clearly, both is great. Both destroyed the other variant. And maybe that's enough for you. But if you want to know it was just the color that did it, then you've got to just test the color. So the test has to be both small enough to be specific, but also large enough to be confident in the results that you get. So, for example, if you've got 5 buttons on your homepage and every button says something different, again, how are you going to know what actually won? You could throw some other testing tools in there to see which buttons get clicked. That's an idea. That's just even more work, though. So having 5 buttons on your site that all say the same thing or that are all the same color, that adds confidence in the results. But testing one thing, like just the button color or just the button text, that adds specificity so you know what actually caused the change in behavior. So those are the testing things. And just a quick reminder, as far as what you're measuring, I really like measuring customer behavior. And if we can, I like measuring what increased the leads or the sales. If you're e-commerce, button color, you're going to change the buttons across the entire site. Pretty simple, right? Definitely track purchases. But if you're not e-commerce, that can get a little bit more complicated. Can you track the buttons on the forms that you have, or whatever the demo, the next step that people take is? You want to be able to track that so we have confidence in the outcome. All right, let's talk about tools. Tools to A/B test your website or your marketing. So first, it depends on what it is that we're going to test. If you're A/B testing Facebook ads, Facebook ads has it built in. Cool. If you're A/B testing Google ads, same thing. If you're A/B testing your website, though, you're going to need some kind of external tool. Now, this gets at one quick thought that I want to clarify before we jump further into the tools. You need to be testing, typically need to be testing one thing, but that only applies to each of these areas. So you could be testing one thing on Facebook ads and a different thing on Google ads. Google ads are a great place to test your message. Facebook ads are a great place to test designs and creatives. Your website's a great place to test basically anything. But you can also have tests, multiple tests running across these. Now, we generally want the ads to be aligned with the web page. That's going to increase conversions on the web page. So there's a limit here, right? If you're testing a lime green color theme on Facebook ads and you have a red color theme on your website, probably not a great idea, right? So there needs to be some level of alignment, but you can be testing one thing on Facebook ads and a different thing on Google ads, and then either nothing or something similar on your website. That's fine because you'll get conclusive data from Facebook. You might be tracking clicks on Facebook. You'll get conclusive data from Google ads. You're going to be tracking clicks on Google ads for sure. And then we have your website, and it depends on how bold you're feeling. Maybe you track nothing on your site yet, or you have very similar tests going on your site so that they align with the ads that you're running. So the tools for your website, I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. If you just go to Google and you type in A/B testing for websites, you're going to see there are a lot of options out there. Too many to get into here. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Google Optimize because it's free. So any paid platform, you're going to have more features. So just keep that in mind here. If you want to go pay for something, it might be worth it. There's an idea about tools in general where the more information and knowledge and experience you have with something, the less your tools need to be able to do. The less information or knowledge or experience you have, the more your tools need to be able to do. So with Google Optimize, you're likely going to be wanting to work with a developer or have at least some development knowledge so that you can go in and set up the test and then track it accurately. If you have less experience in websites and development, it might be better either to hire it out or just to pay for a tool. Again, go to Google, type in A/B testing for websites. You got a lot of options out there. So Google Optimize, what it's going to do is you'll get to throw some code into your site, and that'll integrate it with Google Optimize. Then what is currently on your site will be considered the original, right? So we can call this the original. We can call it our control. That's what it'd be called in science, would be the control. Then within Google Optimize, when you build your test, it's going to call this a variant, and you will get to select specific elements to have it change. So this could be words, and you can highlight the words and change that. It could be a color of a button. It is pretty cool. You can basically just point and click and then tell Google to change that thing. And then when somebody arrives at your site, Google Optimize will decide, are they going to see the original or are they going to see the variant? And then it's going to be collecting data. And then as it does this, it starts to predict, based on the outcome that you have it tracking, it starts to predict which one's going to win. Now, I would caution you, just have patience, wait until it says which one actually won, because it can start predicting pretty early. You might have one conversion on on the variant, for example. That is far from being a winner. But Google Optimize might be saying, oh, there's an 80% chance this is going to win. So just chill, let it do its thing, have some patience, and let those conversions start rolling in. Again, ideally, we want about 100 conversions. Okay, with that in mind, I'm sure you're asking now, well, what if I don't have that much traffic? What if we're not going to be able to see 100 conversions in the next 6 months, right? That's just a long time to be running a test. Well, this is where you just got to do the hard work, right? So what we're doing with our client who's launching this new thing that's not existed, he's basically creating an industry, creating a product within that industry. We're having his salesperson do some A/B testing as well. So we're going to be setting up A/B tests on the website, and we're going to be having the salesperson engage in the same A/B tests. So like I said, we're talking about the motivation of the customer. We're talking about the problem, right? On the site, we're going to be testing one thing at a time. But the great thing about a sales call is you can ask a person questions. And so you can have your salesperson, or if that's you, you can do this yourself, ask questions. Hey, what is the problem that you're experiencing as it relates to ... So if we were going to be launching a new marketing program, for example, and we've got a salesperson who's jumping on the phone with folks, that might be a question. What is the problem that you have that relates to marketing? Wow. Well, let me tell you, right? And then the person's going to take notes. And then you got to have a place for them to put these notes so that you can start learning. Now, some folks have said if you're not going to get a lot of conversions on your A/B tests, use something like a heat map instead. I disagree with this because it has the same problems. First off, heat maps, if you don't know what this is, basically it tracks where the mouse is on your website. And it's able to kind of approximate where a person's looking because we generally move our mouse where we're looking. So it's able to approximate that. It does track button clicks and things, and it will tell you percentage of people who do things. What I have seen, though, is a lot of folks misread heat maps. They might say, I've heard so many people say, oh my God, only 30% of my viewers are making their way down to this particular section on the site. And then they decide they got to delete everything after that section because nobody's seeing it. Well, spoiler alert, hardly anyone's making it to the bottom of your site. Like, that's just how it is. If you have a really good blog article, you might have 10, 20% making it down to the bottom, but it's just how people function, right? Obviously, 100% of the people are going to see the top of your site. And if you kind of just do the math and you're like, common sense here, the further down you scroll, the less people are going to make it. So some of them are leaving because they're not interested. I mean, if no one is making it to like 20% of the way down your site, that's a problem. But you're always going to see a drop-off. That's totally normal to see a decrease in the number of people who make it further and further down your site. So if you decide to go this heat map route, just don't freak out, okay? That's normal. The further you scroll down, the less people are going to be down there, are going to be making it down there. Fine. Now, this means you should always be putting your most important stuff up at the top. Great, but that applies to everyone. So when it comes to A/B testing, you kind of might be able to make some assumptions with a heat map that are less clear if you're just tracking conversions, right? If you've set up your A/B test to track purchases, sure, a heat map can give you a little bit more information because it's going to be tracking all of the behavior that happens before a purchase. It's just very hard for most people to interpret, which is why it's an option, but I would say just pick up the phone and start calling folks. Ask them a lot of questions. That's going to be a way to gather similar information to tweak your messaging a little bit faster. Another option, there are survey websites out there. And these websites kind of crowdsource, they give you the ability to crowdsource information. So you'd pay a fee, and you can upload 2 or 3 designs, for example, and then these survey sites will then go pay people to look at the thing that you uploaded and say which one they like most. So this is another way that you can speed up A/B testing. So if you're, for example, launching a new brand, you might want to do this with the name of your company. Go pay for like 1,000 people to vote on 5 different options. Now you know which one that's a lot of people. Or if you've got different logos or different designs, right? If you don't have the web traffic, this could be a great way to get information. Now, you're also going to pay for it though. So depending on how much stuff you're experimenting with, this can add up quickly. But the basic idea here is if you do not have enough website traffic to engage in a thorough A/B test that is actually going to end up with statistically significant results, you've got to go to the people. Go to them with the sales call. Go to them by going to these survey websites. Get in front of them yourself. Ads. That's what Facebook ads do. Facebook ads, you're paying to get in front of people. So ads are another great way to do this, to kind of force the A/B test on people rather than waiting for them to come to you. So you can learn faster that way. So that's what we do. If we have somebody who has low traffic, but they're going to be running ads, they've got a decent ads budget, we're going to be using those ads to A/B test messages and designs and button colors and button text and all of that. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. So let me just go through a quick recap of everything. First, we want to A/B test because our opinions are almost always wrong. We might be right about something, but I can basically guarantee that we are wrong about something as well. And so we want to get to the data. We want to get to the customer behavior so that we can be confident in the things that we're doing. To set up an A/B test, we're going to have variance, and we're going to be measuring a specific outcome. It is okay to test more than one thing at once if the only thing that you care about is what makes you more money. That's okay. It is a justifiable reason to test more than one thing at once. The problem is you're not going to have the cause and effect. You're not going to know exactly what caused the change in customer behavior, which is why we launch a site that is entirely different. That is a test of many things all at once. And then we do A/B tests of one thing at a time constantly. We are always doing an A/B test on our website and our clients' websites. So we are constantly learning and refining, improving conversions, and moving in that direction of higher leads and sales. There's a lot of tools out there. Go type it into Google, but Google Optimize is a decent free tool if you have some web development experience. And finally, if you don't have the traffic on your site, your job then is to get in front of people to get that customer data. Survey sites, sales calls, and ads are a great way to do that. Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. If you liked this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to outsource your marketing to our team, go to clearbrand.com.